Hey, we're live. Let's get the link shared on the Facebook page. Doop de doop. Shapoopy, shapoopy, ba-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo-doo.
That's hard to get.
Let's see. An advertisement? Really? No.
Hello. Hello. I'm doing well. How are you?
All right.
All right, thank you.
Where? Did you get the link or I got it? Here, I got it.
All right, she's there, ready to go.
Okay, give me 2 seconds. Back it out. I feel like the pre-show part of this, when we're like setting everything up, is really boring, and I feel bad that that's broadcasting.
Welcome to radio, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I know back when I was a listener and not a part of this, I was always like, man, that pre-show's got to be amazing. You know, they got to usher the girls out of the room so they can actually get to work.
No, it doesn't work that way at all. And I've got the window just in the background, so Melody's probably like making evil faces at us, and I can't tell. Okay. She's not making evil faces. She's just like, bleh!
Very adult, Melody. Very adult.
Very adult. Much adult.
I'm wearing my Star Wars shirt.
Yay, Star Wars! All right. Okay, so you can hear, if I heard you in my headphones, that means you can hear what we're saying via the microphone, which is just weirded me out for some reason. Okay, Joe, are you ready? Let me get my script pulled up.
You have a script?
Yeah, I know, right? Well, no, not for what we're talking about. I have no fucking clue.
I'm freaking scared.
No, I have no fucking idea what you and I are going to talk about on the show, but I do have a script for like the people that pay me money.
Maybe right now you guys could discuss what you're going to talk about.
No, that's
why would you want to do that?
God, shut up, Jack. Bad idea. Pony says, nay.
You leave Bad Idea Pony out of this.
No. All right. Are you ready, Jack?
I am ready. I'm sharing the Google Hangout link.
On your page?
Yeah. Right now.
Because I shared it on the Ballistic Radio page.
I know.
Okay.
Right now?
Right now.
Yeah, I guess I should share it on my page too.
And here we go.
What, you shared it and that's here we go?
Yeah.
We've been live for like the last 4 or 5 minutes. That was here we go, Jack.
That segment, that's for the people that watch at home later. On average, we get a ton of views on these things, and it always weirds me out that there's like somebody that's like, yes, it's here, the new one. John and Jack awkwardly sitting around talking about Star Wars.
Oh my God!
Which, if we can make money awkwardly sitting around talking about Star Wars, we're done with the guns. We're gonna throw them away.
Yeah,
straight easy.
Easy. I would rather deal with Star Wars idiots than like gun idiots. Oh, I didn't see that. Sorry, guys. I love you, even when you're stupid.
Especially when you're stupid.
Well, yeah, when you're stupid, it's when you're easy. All right. There's 5 people watching now. Now you're one of them.
Yeah.
And Melody's husband is another one of them.
Hi, honey.
But there's like 3 other people here that. Anyway. Why is this not working? Why can't I share this on my page? Cancel. All right. I'm sorry, Joe. Joe's like, I'm so fucking tired. Please start this shit so I can get out of here. How late have you been here since, Joe?
1 a.m.
1 a.m. You look
Oh.
tired.
Let's let Joe go home. Let's do the thing.
Yeah, if we piss Joe off, he's gonna like fuck with the levels, and I'm gonna sound like a munchkin.
You already sounded pretty rough.
We represent the lollipop guild. The lollipop guild. The lollipop guild. It's not funny when you do it, Melody. It's just how you sound. It's funny when Jack does it. Okay. Focus. Oh, goddamn.
Game plan.
No game plan. All right. We're going to turn your microphone off just for a second, Melody, while we do the intro. Then Joe will turn your mic back on. There's no commercial break since we're recording, so this will go pretty quick unless we get distracted. Try not to curse this time since you had like a potty mouth last time, but Joe can like bleep it out and replace it with, oh yeah, she dropped like a 4-letter word on live radio. Pat fucking Rogers, the foulest mouth man I've ever met. You know.
Well done, Melody. Well done.
That is using like expletives between whistles. And I love Pat. Pat is a dear friend of mine. That was not too much. Melody Lauer gets on the air though, and she's like, God, shit, fuck. No, stop.
It was one word. One word.
Shut him down. Open up shop.
Whoa. Okay.
No.
The cold medicine and the monster and the coffee is really doing bad things to my professionalism right now. All right, Joe, I'm sorry. Are you ready? Just like, okay. Let me make sure everything is turned off. Jack, you ready? Okay. Welcome to Ballistic Radio. I'm your host, John Johnston. Remember, you can always listen to past shows at ballisticradio.com when we put them up on time, which is rarely lately, Jack. And get the latest behind-the-scenes info, arguments, silliness videos, links to Google Hangouts of the live broadcast, or recorded broadcast in this case, where we embarrass ourselves at facebook.com/ballisticradio. Also free stuff there. Co-hosting with me, Jack.
Yay.
Are you excited, Jack? Should we not talk about this on air?
No, because if we talk about it on air, this is going to be a different show.
Huh. I feel harassed. I need a safe space.
Are you triggered right now?
Well, actually, yes, but for good reasons. Star Wars, yay! So through the magic of radio, we are recording this show because we're going to be at a class this weekend, and we also happen to be going to the premiere of Star Wars Episode 7 tonight. Please let it be good, please. So we are a little excited. That we got up really early to come up here, so we apologize in advance. A quick reminder: this segment brought to you by Wilson Combat. Wilson Combat makers of the finest custom 1911s, ARs, and scatterguns since 1977, a very good year. A legacy of quality, innovation, and service. Learn more about their firearms and accessories at www.wilsoncombat.com. And also, Eridus Industries and the patent-pending QDC, quick detached side saddle shell carrier, available for pre-order. Check out the new rigid interchangeable side saddle carrier, changing how you look at shotguns forever. Find out why Steve Fisher, Chris Fry, and myself all call it the best hard mount side saddle carrier ever invented. Would you like to know more? Visit eridusindustries.com. And Eridus is spelled A-R-I-D-U-S, since that was a point of confusion for some people as I read this ad. Anyway, joining us today, Melody Lauer. Melody, how are you?
I'm doing very well. Good morning.
Good morning. It's so it's like even earlier where you're at. I apologize. That, and then as we were driving up here, we sprung on you. Oh, by the way, we'd like to do video of this as well. You're like, oh, yay.
Now I have to get adult clothes on.
Adult clothes. You're wearing a Star Wars T-shirt. Is that adult clothes?
It absolutely is, especially this weekend.
Okay, I guess. So for those that don't know, if you could go over your background a little bit, and then I'll like fully disclose that we've just hired you for something next year. But maybe we'll tease that a little bit today. I don't know.
Oh, maybe.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm not decided.
Well, I've been an NRA certified instructor since about 2007 and became a range master certified instructor in 2013. And that's kind of the year I really decided I wanted to become a serious instructor, not just play around with it. So I really just jumped up my training schedule, took anything that anyone would let me in, the four bastards. And then I started writing more seriously for the gun industry. I write for Lucky Gunner. I also write my own blog, mostly along the lines of self-defense and things like that, application for citizens. And then I just got offered an interesting job. So looking forward to what that will do.
Yeah. And for those that don't know, or that don't follow the Facebook page, Melody's going to be joining the Ballistic Radio family in 2016. We have some, interesting things in development. We've got so many interesting things in development right now that I can't even know where to start. But we're gonna be focusing on some new to us things next year that is going to be really cool. So something else you didn't mention, one of the things, if you've sort of, I don't want to say discovered a niche, because you do a lot of things and you don't just focus on this, but where I guess you first gained notoriety was the work you had done with family and children in a armed context. Not armed children.
Yeah, not armed children. Yeah, earlier, actually, it was just about this time last year, there was the mother whose child gained access to her firearm while she was shopping in Walmart and shot and killed her. And it turned out that she was a trained, woman who had just gotten a concealed carry purse for Christmas. And that really lit a fire under me, because in my mind, there's no reason that those things should happen. Right. We have the accessibility to good equipment, to good training as parents, that we should know how to safely handle our firearms in a family environment, which I've been doing now for, my oldest is 7, and I have a 3-year-old and I have a 1-year-old. So it became my passion at that time to make training more accessible to parents, and to specifically address their needs more along the lines of how do you safely live with a gun with children, but then also that kind of evolved into what happens if you have your children with you and happen to be in a self-defense incident. What new, and maybe not new considerations, but different considerations do you need to have at that time?
Well, I think, and that's an interesting point. It seems like one of the biggest problems with our industry is people's unwillingness to examine other people's circumstances and situations and realize that maybe what makes sense in one context and one environment does not make sense in another context and another environment.
Yeah. And when it comes specifically to family dynamics, so most of the classes out there are really set up for a single person responding to a simple, I call them simple attacks or simple assaults. There might be nothing simple about it, but it's usually just focusing on you, yourself, you're alone. I can't remember the last time that I was alone out and about. I'm either with my husband or I'm with my children. I'm either with one child or I'm with all 3 of my children. So taking them into account, and I've been training now for almost a decade, a little over a decade actually, and I've taken one class that dealt with more than one person, and that was a partner tactics class. That had nothing to do with children. It had to do with an adult that you're working with. And while there were some really good things that I could pull from that, particularly like partner rescue, those kinds of tactics, the stuff involving children is still, there's not a lot out there.
Well, and we've sort of hinted at this at the past. So this segment is quickly becoming self-serving on our part, but I'm okay with that. This is something that you and I have been examining and working on a curriculum for the last 6, 7 months now.
Yeah, I think it's been about 6 months.
And what's been sort of intriguing for me is what I initially thought at the beginning of that, oh, this will be easy. How hard could it be? As we delve deeper into this and some of the considerations, it's like, not enough thought is given to certain aspects of this. We'll talk about that a little bit, as we get deeper into the show. But I guess what has been the most surprising thing for you about all of this as you get further into it?
I think one of the surprising things is how little consideration is put into the very, very specific aspects of it. So, like for instance, what do you do if you're carrying a gun and you need to draw it, but you have your baby in your arms? That seems like a really easy question to answer. Well, but at the same time, when you start to really break it down and you start doing the work, either in force on force or dry fire or something like that, you realize it's not that simple. Something that's simple in a home context, like putting your child down, becomes totally different when all of a sudden you're worried about getting shot or stabbed or all those kinds of things. Yeah.
Right.
So
let me interrupt real quick. I apologize. We have to go to break. Right now we're talking with Melody Lauer, and you're listening to Ballistic Radio. See, the nice thing is there's no break, but I just got really fucking hot because apparently.
Do it slow for the camera. Oh, please stop.
You told me
I
to.
immediately regret my decision.
thank you, Jack.
I'm sorry, home viewers.
What? See, I made fun of Melody for wearing a Star Wars shirt. And...
Free hugs. Free neck hugs.
I know, right? I want to get some tape and write neck, free, and then neck hugs.
Remind me to tell you something when we're off recording completely.
Is this like a mouth hug joke? Because we're not talking about those.
No, it's a completely different joke, but it does not need to be recorded.
Is this about your porn career? Oh!
Yes.
All right. And Joe's like, I'm editing all of this out. Joe, are you ready? You didn't know Jack was on air talent for an adult industry thing? You kept your clothes on though, right?
Let's not go into it.
Huh. I don't believe you put this on your resume when I hired you, sir.
It was under my video experience. I just used the public name for the company.
Anyway, back to adulting. All right. Joe, you ready? This is your favorite show to record, isn't it? Okay. It's way more interesting than Brian's. Oh. All right. Welcome back to Ballistic Radio! Epic Rap Battle of Misery! This segment brought to you by Dark Star Gear. Whether you know the color of the boathouse at Hereford or only know the color of your mom's basement and Cheeto-stained socks, Dark Star Gear has a solution your gear carrying needs. Check out their clip-on holster for small semi-autos and revolvers, or their highly adjustable full-size AIWB holster. They even have a belt wrap sheath for popular fixed-blade centerline knives to really tie your everyday carry together, like that one rug I used to have. Designed, developed, and pressure tested for real life, not Instagram. Find out more at darkstargear.com. And also, Eridus Industries and the patent-pending QDC Quick Detach Side Saddle Shell Carrier. Available now for pre-order. Would you like to know more? Visit eridusindustries.com. So I was going to throw in a Michael J. Sox reference into the Dark Star Gear ad just for you. But I thought we talked a little too much about past career choices during the break to really drop that on you there too. Yeah.
Look, I was young.
And stop. Now we're on air. So you don't talk about that because the FCC is apparently sort of anti-express. Anyway, I need to hold on. Anyway, we're talking with Melody Lauer. Now, Melody, before the break, you were discussing things that seem simple in practice or like in the comfort of your home, like putting a baby down if they're in your arms, becomes much more complicated. That's not a word. Complicated in the middle of a violent encounter. Why do you think people don't think about those things?
Well, I think they don't think about it because it is so easy. You know, we do it as parents, we do it 100 times a day, and we don't think about what if I was on a concrete parking lot and needed to do this in less than a second to save my life or to save my child's life or to get that child out of the fight. Right. And then when you think about it in terms of, okay, so how would I do this? It starts to, you have to start to consider all the aspects of it. Like, well, I can't just drop my kid. They might get a traumatic brain injury and I might kill them. I can't take the time to maybe slowly put them down. So then you have to come up with ways to test, ways to draw your gun that are best for you, that are best for the child. And then you, as you're testing, you're like, oh, wow, that won't work. I'm going to end up dropping my kid on the head. You know, so it becomes a much bigger thing that, but I think some people who think about these things and start to advocate things, they get a theory and they think that their theory is right. They don't test that theory. Yeah. And then they start advocating for it and people go, oh, well, I heard this and it was from this source, so it must be good. But they really haven't put a lot of time actually testing it. So that's what I think we're trying to do that's a little bit different.
Well, so I got to ask, how much time have you spent dropping your kids now since we've been working on this?
Can I actually admit this on public?
Well, why don't you provide context and safety precautions that were put in place before?
Yeah, well, we have I do have a dummy child that I made. It's appropriately.
Shouldn't talk about your children that way. That's terrible.
I made, well, I guess I did make my children too. This one's not real. This one's not real. It's I think it's the appropriate size and weight for about a 1-year-old, I think. So we I have it appropriately weighted, and we practiced doing that one, dropping him for a little while. We call him Sand Baby. He's made with sand. Then, so context for dropping real children, I did kind of practice the slide technique that we came up with for drawing on my bed. I made a game out of it. I was kind of like, wee, you know, throwing the kids around and practiced that a couple times to see how it would work with an actual live, legally handsy child.
Right. So. Just for a point of reference, when you drop the weighted fake baby on your foot, it hurts a little. That's how you know you've done it right, though.
We did that how many times? Like 10, 20?
A lot. So I know that my left foot hurt afterwards. So something like that, you know. Well, and then the question becomes, do you think that people react in the middle of a violent encounter the way they expect to react?
Yes and no. I think that depends, and Craig Douglas has talked a lot about this. There are, and even William April too, there are ways that you think that you're going to act, you know, and I think even Greg Elford talks about this, where if you have a prior training and you have a parking spot, as William April likes to say, for that scenario, you may very well respond exactly how you think that you're going to. However, if you don't have a parking spot for that scenario and you don't have, you haven't thought about it, or even if you thought about it but you're distracted, you're just not on top of your game that day, you're tired, you're really not thinking about it, you may have this idea built up in your head. And as you know, Craig Douglas talks about, just because you had a success before doesn't mean that you'll have a success now. But here's the problem with this context is nobody's practicing this, because it's really hard to practice this with your children. So there aren't a lot of people out there who have parking spots for what happens if I get into a violent encounter with my child present. So a lot of the people, or a lot of parents rather, that I talk to say things like, well, if anyone touches my child, I'm just going to kill him. Well, we need to put that into context. Is it appropriate for you to kill someone just because is it legal for you to kill someone just because they touched your child?
I'll fast forward to the ending. The answer is generally no. But
yeah, exactly. You still need to have justification. The emotional stakes do not negate the necessity of you having all of those other elements in place, such as ability, opportunity, jeopardy. Those things still apply. So it becomes a matter of making sure that you think about those scenarios beforehand, you have a plan, and then you can justifiably act on what's going on.
Right. Is it sad that I'm Facebook messaging Jack in the middle of our show just because I want him to take note of something you just said, but didn't want to say it on air? Oh, wait, I just did that. I think that's really important, though, to sort of highlight is something you said there is that the emotional state you find yourself in does not negate the necessity of being justified in our actions. And that's something that a lot of people seem to lose sight of, especially I'd had William April on a couple episodes ago and talked about this, where people are much more quick to do violence on behalf of someone else oftentimes than they are even for themselves.
Yeah, and I think where the kids are involved, obviously we have really high emotional stakes. People get really emotionally tied up in their children, and William April talks a lot about the people you are willing to kill for,
right,
and die for, and having that list be really low or small rather. But here's the other thing too: people don't consider often. They think that their emotional state is going to somehow make them some kind of ninja. That they're suddenly going to rise to the occasion just because they're really emotionally involved in the situation.
Right.
But they still need to understand that you still have a freeze response. You still have a flight response. I can't tell you how many videos I've seen of parents getting involved in situations that just run away and leave their child behind. And when those things are posted on the internet, normal, sane parents who are watching and aren't in a dangerous situation, really get very angry at that parent, and they're like, how could that, obviously they don't love their child if they would leave them. No, they are scared out of their rational thinking mind, and they are doing exactly what their body programmed them to do. And if they think that they can't do the same thing, they're fooling themselves. And that's another example of them, because their emotional stakes are high, they think that they're going to be ninjas. You may run too, and you need to be prepared for that.
Well, I think and William April is one to talk about this as well, the difference between a response and a reaction. And a response occurs once we have time. And it might not be very much time at all, but we can process what's going on, whereas a reaction is just literally a reaction to something that's going on before our thinking brain gets to become involved in it.
Yes.
We've got about a minute left in this segment before we have to go to break. As far as, I know you've watched a lot of videos of this, is there anything in particular that just strikes you as weird that people do a lot when they get attacked with their kids present?
Oh, I don't think it's necessarily weird, but I think what's interesting about parents that we don't talk about, so we talk about the freeze, flight, and fight reactions or responses, but I've noticed a fourth one that parents do, and that's shielding. And no one talks about shielding.
Well, I was going to say, and that's a really good place to sort of tease for the next segment. We're talking with Melody Lauer right now, and you are listening to Ballistic Radio. Oh, you don't have to do that.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Yeah, he's going to edit this part out. I'm just taking a moment because I'm like, oh, God, I can't breathe through my nose and talking. What are you doing?
My battery.
God, someone needs to pay you more. You've got janky-ass shit.
I was operating all gorilla style for a while.
Oh, I'm dying.
It's the awe dying part gets me.
And I'm dead. Anyway, there's a whole 6 people watching this right now.
Hi, 6 people.
What?
Just like, it makes me happy.
Yeah, well, you're one of them, and Melody's husband is one of them. So there's like 4 people, and Nate Perry doesn't count because he's like barely human. Oh, sorry, Nate. Anyway, back to the show. Joe's like, please shut up. I want to go.
So sleepy.
So sleepy. Much hatred. So you're going to get up early to go see Star Wars and then go to work? What? You're dead to me. You're dead to me. They've got like 7 and 9 o'clock showings, I want to say, too. Wow, nice. Nice. I like that. Do you see what he did there?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. I caught that.
That was good. All right. Did you say that over the speaker so everyone could hear? You should say it over the speakers. Anyway, Joe said he couldn't go to a 7 or 9 o'clock showing because apparently that's when he was going to be sleeping now, implying that we were taking too damn long. All right. Are we ready?
Here we.
Okay, that's so played out now. You got just shut up.
I got one thing, man.
Well,
that's all I got.
Quit ripping off Heath Ledger. Jesus. Welcome back to Ballistic Radio. This segment brought to you by TopGunSupply.com. TopGunSupply.com is your web source for fine firearms parts and accessories. True product specialists committed to delivering the highest level of customer support to you. They carry top name brands including Ed Brown, Wilson Combat, Les Barrett, 6R, and many more, as well as premium AR pattern rifles. Whether you are looking to protect yourself, are a first-time gun buyer, or a competitive shooter, TopGunSupply.com can satisfy your firearms needs. TopGunSupply.com, your premier source for SIG parts and accessories. And also, Eridus Industries and the patent-pending QDC, Quick Detach Side Saddle Shell Carrier, available now for pre-order. Would you like to know more? Intensity to know more intensifies? Oh, I messed that up. Darn. Cold medicine ruined it for me. Visit EridusIndustries.com. Desire to know more intensity. For those that don't know, I'm trying to recreate a Starship Troopers meme through the magic of radio, and I just did a terrible job, which I deeply apologize. If I had a fork to stab myself with, a la Monty Python, I would, but I don't.
I have a fork in my bag right now.
Right. So of all the times you could have said right now, that's the time you say now?
You yelled at me for overplaying my jokes.
No, I yelled at you for overplaying your Heath Ledger joke.
Oh, I like my Heath Ledger joke.
No one else does. Anyway, we're talking with Melody Lauer. Melody, are you still there?
I am still here.
I'm so sorry. I would have hung up on us by now. So we were talking about the fourth response that a lot of parents seem to have that no one ever talks about, and that was shielding.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that?
Well, it is basically where the parent or the loved one, and actually sometimes even the stranger, throws themselves between the danger and someone they want to protect, whether that person's actually being attacked or not, and basically just absorbs whatever violence is happening consciously. You know, they consciously, and maybe they unconsciously do it. I honestly have not researched it enough to know if that's part of a freeze response or what, but I've seen several videos of it where the parent will just throw themselves over, and they are conscious, they are talking, they are actually calming their child while being beaten, while being stabbed, shot. You know, they are just taking that as punishment for whatever's going on.
Well, and the most recent example that I'm aware of is there's a nanny cam video of a woman in her house. I want to say that was New Jersey or New York, one of those places, where someone comes into the house and literally starts beating her mercilessly. And then the guy goes upstairs and I mean, did you know the video I'm talking about?
Oh yeah. She exactly. She basically on the couch, I think 2-year-old or something, and she goes over to that. She calms the child. She keeps the child calm, and then when the person comes back down, he continues to beat her, and you know, she basically allows herself. And when you listen to her interview later, She says that she just wanted to keep the child calm, and she was willing to take whatever he had to give her just to basically keep his attention on her and not on the child. And that's another good example. And like I said, it happens in stranger situations too. Recently, the most recent terrorist shooting, one guy, turned to his coworker and said, "I got you," and took a bullet and died for his coworker. So it happens in stranger situations too.
Well, the thing that struck me about the nanny cam video was this guy goes upstairs. She's left alone in the living room. She could have, had she been, capable of processing it. I don't think she was. And I'm not saying this being critical. I'm just pointing it out. She could have picked her kid up and ran out the door. And
from what I understand, though, there was another child upstairs that she was not willing to leave the house without both of her children, which I completely understand. But you're right. I think that was another example. And again, this is completely not her fault, because I think, like you said, she just had not put this in. There was no prior planning. She didn't have a parking space for if someone knocks through my door or breaks down my door and starts beating me in my living room, what do I do? Because her only recourse was, let's just keep things calm and maybe he'll go away. But in that moment, could there have been an opportunity? And again, this is not on her, but as we learn from that situation and go forward, could that have been an opportunity to retrieve a weapon, to come up with a plan that maybe she could have gotten that child out of the house and just said, run to the neighbor's house or whatever, while she found a weapon and prepared for when he came back down, or something along those lines. And that's what I think what we're trying to focus on is, if you get into that shielding mindset, it's almost like a freeze response. That's all you do, is you kind of just shield and you want to protect and you're willing to die, basically. But if there is an opportunity to change the dynamic and maybe fight back, maybe it's time to do that, at some point in time.
Well, and I wonder if it's almost an extension of the freeze response, and it's just like a sub outlet of that, where, well, you are going to freeze, but you are at least thinking of those around you when you do. I don't know. I get to hang out with William April this weekend, so I will ask him about it if I remember to. Hopefully.
There you go. All right. I'm interested to hear what he has to say, because I'm very curious myself.
Hopefully Jack reminds me. Hopefully. But so I guess my next question becomes, what do you think as parents and see, we're kind of preaching to the choir here, because most of the people that listen to this show are going to be people that are already interested in being armed. So what do you think in these situations armed parents should be thinking about?
I think the first thing is really pre-planning and coming up with plans for your children, not just yourself. Like I said, we think about situations like, if I am in this situation, I will do this. Well, start thinking about, if I am in this situation, what will I do with my children? And the other thing too is delegating tasks to your children. Obviously, if they're really little and can't understand, then you have to take that into account. But older children who can understand can run and hide. They can call the police. They can get out. They can go lock doors. They can, and running those like you would run fire drills or tornado drills or whatever kind of drills you do, so that your children have an understanding of what can go. What can happen and what their responsibilities are, but also coming up with a conversation for your children. Because I think if I have to talk to my child, if I just have to pull a gun and start shooting people, my child won't have a context for that unless I sit there and talk to him and say, okay, there are bad people in the world. If you know that mommy carries a gun, if mommy pulls a gun, this is what I want you to do. If you see mommy's gun come out of her holster, this is what I want you to do. Obviously, this is, again, age dependent for understanding, but a lot of parents, I think, are scared to have that conversation with their child, because they don't want that child to then go out in public and be like, hey, my mommy carries a gun. And right. That becomes a conversation of what is private and what is not private. So the way we talk about it in our family is, mommy and daddy's guns are just like when you go to the bathroom. We don't talk about going to the bathroom in public, so we don't talk about guns in public, you know? And so they go, okay, and that seems to be an understanding for them. So they seem to get that pretty well. So
Right.
It's not been a problem.
Do you think that part of it is just the situation itself, if it happens, is so terrible that people don't want to even admit that it's a possibility?
Oh yeah, I think there's a lot of fantasy gunfighting that people they get that ideal situation in their head, and usually they're alone. They never get injured. There's no one they love who's in the vicinity to get hurt. But I think that when you really think, and here's another interesting aspect to that. So some of the parents who do have their children with them all the time, they will talk about collecting their children to them. Well, if something happens, I'm going to pull my child behind me, or I'm going to baby wear my child because then he's more protected. And they don't consider the fact that any violence that's directed towards you will go through that child or be directed in the direction of that child. And it does not compute to them that collecting your children to yourself might actually be putting that child in harm's way.
Well, it seems like, too, that one of the things that runs counter to what people think of, especially when they start applying like executive protection type tactics to things, is that the quickest way to fix the problem in a civilian context, responding to, a simple assault or robbery or whatever, is to really just make the problem stop. And that the time you take collecting someone to you or trying to shield them or whatever extends the fight.
Absolutely. And that's actually one of the things that kind of surprised me, even when I started kind of researching this, is that I was kind of in the mindset of we have to worry about the kid. We have to get the kids out of it. We have to protect the kids. And really, when I started crunching the numbers and started doing the work and started kind of doing some force on force, really the fastest way out of this situation is to end the fight. And that's really switching that switch basically, and taking the fight very aggressively to the bad guy within justification. Again, we have to be clear that this is within the justifications of a self-defense situation. And
let me interrupt because we got to go to break. Right now we're talking with Melody Lauer, and you're listening to Ballistic Radio. Oh, thank God.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Held out on that one as long as you could.
Oh, it was killing me. Oh, you like see me? I'm like,
yeah, I'm watching you, just like, and there's nothing I can do. Like,
I'm like trying not to die over here, and holding a sneeze in when you really have to is, I think, worse than having to go to the bathroom.
I don't know.
That was expertly done.
If you absolutely cannot sneeze because of somewhere you were at, okay, you're hiding in the closet. They only come out at night, mostly. And
wow.
And if you sneeze, the xenomorph comes in and
man.
You can pee on yourself, and that's cool.
I love that.
I do too.
Especially the extended cut.
Oh yeah, when they have like the sentry guns and we were such nerds, and Joe's like, "Come on, fuckers, you got one segment left." Sorry, Joe.
Strong. Let's finish strong.
Really? Did you just shoot you?
Focus. Get it together.
Come on, ride the train. Jesus Christ! All right, I'm sorry, Joe. I give you a Christmas bonus for this. I apologize.
He does really good Christmas gifts.
Well, he's not getting that good of a Christmas gift. Anyway, God. Grown up. I'm a grown up. No, I'm not. Okay, now I am. The cold medicine is a problem here. Welcome back to Ballistic Radio! This segment brought to you by Tac Strike Steel Target Systems, makers of the quarter scale steel target and yard frame target stand, which are literally the best steel targets and target stands I've ever used. I've hit their steel targets with more than 60,000 rounds of rifle, pistol, and shotgun ammunition without a single problem. For more information, visit them at tacstrike.com. And also, Aridus Industries and the patent-pending QDC quick-detached side saddle shell carrier, available now for pre-order. Check out the new rigid, interchangeable side saddle carrier, changing how you look at shotguns forever. Find out why Steve Fisher, Chris Fry, and myself all call it the best hard mount side saddle carrier ever invented. Would you like to know more? Visit aridusindustries.com. So, we are talking with Melody Lauer about something that I did not think we would end up talking about at all, but has become the focus of the show. Originally, we were going to talk about reaction times and why that mattered for having small ones around us.
No one cares about that science. I'm going to go ahead and tell you. Like,
well, people should.
They should care about it. I care about it. But if you look at people, when you talk about like the science of this stuff, 8 out of 10 are just like glossed over, like,
huh? What you mean reaction time?
But
instantaneous.
T-shirt.
OODA loop.
OODA loop.
Melody, are you still there?
I am still here.
Okay, good. So before the break, you were talking about taking the fight to the attacker. So making it so that our response, once it's become a lethal incident, you know, to where through the actions of the person that has attacked us, deadly force is justified morally, ethically, legally, being very aggressive, more so than you originally thought.
Yeah, like I said, I used to really think that we needed to just concentrate on protecting and getting out. But I realized that the longer that you take to worry about all those things, the longer, like you said, you remain in the fight, and the more damage that you can receive and receive. So, and I think that's why, and it puts us on the defense. And when you're in the defensive kind of posturing, and this is true in a lot of combative systems, you know, whether it's Krav Maga or whatever, once you're on the defensive, it's very hard to switch to the offensive.
Yeah.
But when you do, if you can make that switch, that's when you become work. You know what I mean? So as long as you remain in that defensive posturing and that defensive mindset, you can continue to be victimized. But once you make that switch and you take that fight to them, you become harder to deal with. You become something that maybe they don't want to deal with anymore. And if you can aggressively take that fight to them and end it very quickly, well, then you've just saved yourself, you've saved your children, and you've possibly even saved other people as well.
Right. And so that's, I think, where a lot of people get confused is, well, I can only respond after this, or I have to wait to get hurt, or whatever, you know. And like you said, that's not the case. And, you know, full disclosure, you and I have been working on this for a while now, and it was something that I was certainly surprised, well, a little bit surprised, when we really started working on hardcore, is, you know, looking at, especially when you start reviewing the videos of things that people do, it's like, how much longer does that fight go on than it needs to, really? Mm-hmm. You know?
Well, and one of the ones that we talked about also, now coming back to that, if you're trying to collect your children to you and also defend them, but also fight, you put yourself at a disadvantage. So one of the videos that we had talked about, which I'm still trying to find again, is a knife attack in, I think it was China, Japan, some Asian country, where a random knifer is running down the street and he's just stabbing people at random. There's a family of 4 walking down the street. Mom is holding one kid's hand, dad is holding the other one in his arms. The guy comes along, stabs mom in the neck. Mom lets go of child, is holding her neck. The dad then collects both children to him. So he's holding one child in his arms and he's holding the hand of the other child. And the guy, the knifer, is trying to knife the dad, and the dad is holding these children while he's trying to kick away the knifer. And he actually does a very good job at kind of pseudo defending himself and his children. But during that, he ends up tripping over one child, falling, dropping the other child while he trips over the first child. And in my mind, I'm thinking, good on him for doing what he did. But had he left the one child and possibly just put the other one down and aggressively took the fight to the other guy, he could have ended that situation a lot faster than what he did. As it turns out, I don't think he ends up getting hurt himself, and this is just a mass stabbing. The guy figures out that this guy's work, I can't stab him very easily, and just runs off and starts stabbing other people. Right. But that's a really good example of both things where taking the fight to the bad guy actually was better than just trying to shield, but at the same time, getting the children out of the fight so that you can fight more effectively, and so that they're not going to get caught up in the carnage as well.
Well, one of the things, and I through my haze of Dayquil and caffeine, I can't quite remember who to attribute this to, but Ernest Langdon. Yay, thank you, memory. One of the things that he said in a class that, was just a variation of other things I'd heard, but I like this analogy. If you play checkers just trying not to get jumped, you eventually lose. And I know that seems like a stretch, but if you really think about that, if you are purely playing a defensive game, you can't win. And when our children are present, especially, it's very important that we win, because if we lose, if something happens to us, then our kids are there on their own. And just a quick shout out to Chris Greenfield, who is watching the Google Hangout of this right now with his daughter. He sent me a screenshot, and it's amazing and really cool to see him doing that. So thumbs up, Chris. Anyway, if you want to respond to what I said now, Melody.
Well, I think what were we talking about now? You distracted me with Chris. Hi, Chris. I think too, I like what you said about if you're in a defensive mindset all the time, you can't win. And I think that is exactly the kind of prey type attitude that the predators like. They like that you're in this place, and they know too that if you're in the presence of your children, the likelihood of you doing something back, aggressively, is probably a little bit lower, because we kind of get soft around our children. So imagine a bad guy picking on you and you flipping that switch and taking the fight to them rather aggressively with him of legal justification and all that stuff. That's going to be a surprise they're not expecting. Which goes into what will the bad guy do if your children's present? What will they how will they respond to the child? Which is another topic entirely on its own, which can also dictate a parent's response.
Right. So I guess would you say the most important thing then is? Well, I guess we'll sum up. Would you say the most important things are to acknowledge that these things can happen in sort of war game scenarios in your head about where they could happen, so that if something does, it doesn't catch us off guard, number one, but also two, be prepared to respond aggressively enough?
I think those two things are really important in as well as be realistic. Be realistic about what you can do physically, mentally, what you can prepare for, what is your skill set? I mean, what can you really do with your defensive tools that you've chosen? And also be realistic about what you may or may not do from a reactionary standpoint. You may flee, you may freeze, you may fight, but you may also get into that kind of defensive shielding type posture. And it's recognizing those things and going, okay, I've had this natural reaction. I have this moment of clarity. I have an opportunity to fight. Let's fight. Because that's what's going to end the situation the fastest.
Well, and that's an amazing place to end the show, because we're actually coming up on the last minute of the broadcast. If people want to find out more about what you do or read your articles and stuff, where can they find you at?
melodylauer.com. And it's pretty simple.
There you go. You're also searchable on Facebook, Melody Lauer / Lima Tunes.
Yep. Melody Lauer / Lima Tunes.
Perfect. Well, that and there's going to be some stuff on the Ballistic Radio page coming up, but we're not talking about that all the way yet. So anyway, Melody, thank you very much for coming on today's show. If you want to hang around just for the Google broadcast, just for a couple minutes after this, I'm sure there might be questions. Anyway, make sure you guys check out our website, ballisticradio.com, like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ballisticradio. Thanks for listening, everyone. As always, be safe and see you next week. Yay! So, thank you very much, Melody. We are still live on the Google Hangout for those.
Do I switch to the computer now and hang up?
You don't have to. I mean, this seems to be working just fine.
Okay.
Do any of you guys watching, there's only 9 watching right now, but do any of you guys watching have any questions or anything you would like us to address real quick before we get off the Google Hangout? And see, now we get to wait like 30 to 90 seconds while the Google Hangout catches up to the
broadcast.
Yeah, the broadcast. I'm getting all sorts of Facebook messages about, wow, thanks for bringing this up. I have a kid, or I'm getting ready to have a kid, and I had not thought about this.
Well, that's good.
It's almost like we knew that, and that's why we've been working on this for like the last 6-7 months.
I know, right?
Sometimes we're smart or something. Opportunistic? Is that the word?
That's pretty good.
That's a good word. Wait,
Yeah.
That makes it sound like we're only motivated for money.
One, we are motivated for money.
I'm very.
I have pure motivations.
Yeah.
I'm just here to help you.
Best task to assign your non-gun carrying spouse.
Well, if you have children around, I would say get the children out.
Yeah. I mean, so if you've got someone that is, so they'll talk about these things with you, but they will not, and Joe, we won't be in here much longer, I promise. If you can talk about these things realistically with your spouse, significant other, whomever, they're not going to be armed. They can still be incredibly useful. They can remove people from scenarios for you. At the very least, they can watch your sex. I hate that term, but they can do all sorts of things that does not involve being armed. It really depends on what kind of threat they're facing too. Honestly, something as simple as and I say simple, but it is a relatively simple, problem to solve, is like a parking lot robbery or something like that. If there's a little bit of separation between you two, as soon as the attention is focused on the other person that is not armed, that's when you access your firearm and shoot them in the fucking face.
I don't have a lot to add here, but I'll say you should tell your spouse or whoever to get out of your way.
Yeah.
Like 9 times out of 10, I see people just like insert themselves into situations, and it's like, thank you, you've now made this worse.
Yeah.
So a conversation about not getting involved.
Yeah. Unless you need them to, but that's a very weird conversation to have. Melody, do you have anything to add to that question?
Yeah, I think the getting out, also not starting a fight or making a fight worse, that would be a really big one.
Good one. I cannot tell you the number of times someone that we mutually know, Emma. Wow. At the beginning of our relationship, in fairness, she's from New England, so it's not that she's bitchy, but she's
about that life.
Yeah. All New Englanders are. She would. Oh God. Ha! Thank God she's not going to watch this.
I touched a firearm.
She could fucking shoot, dude. But anyway, going back to that, she would like get in arguments, and I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Well, it's like, I don't care. Any fight you get me in is a gunfight, whether or not the gun comes out. And like getting them to understand that is a massive, massive important point, I think. You know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
We got a question from Matt Boardman that did not, he's not in the Google Hangout. Can you quit stroking that stand, you fucking weirdo? He asked, are there any carry positions or options that just plain don't work with children?
Ooh, that depends on how you're carrying your children, really.
Right.
So, you know, I kind of came into this thinking it from the baby wearing aspect, where you actually have the child strapped to your body in a carrier. There are positions there, depending on where you're carrying your child, or no, carrying a gun. Like, for instance, if you carry strictly on the front of the body, carrying appendix just will not work. You can't get to your gun, and even if you can, drawing up like between you and the baby is just bad. Or even trying to lift baby, get underneath the gun, it's just not good. Conversely, if you're carrying baby on the back and you have, you know, maybe you carry behind the hip, you've got child's leg over top of it. So yeah, that's bad. But when it comes to just, if you just don't baby wear, but you have the baby in your arms, I think that pretty much either appendix or behind the hip works really well, provided you don't carry the child in your strong arm, because then you have to take the time to transfer the child over to the other side. We ran this with John, myself, and Chuck Haggard. John and I were both doing appendix carry, and Chuck was doing behind the hip, and we did not see any huge disadvantage from carrying behind the hip. Of course, it was Chuck Haggard, so, but that's something to mention.
Yeah, I will say this. The reason why we didn't see any major disadvantages to carrying behind the hip is because Chuck didn't have to do an offhand draw. If Chuck had to do an offhand draw dealing with a kid behind the hip, he'd have been fucked. And
yeah, that's very true. If you need to do something like that, well, whether you have a kid there or not, an offhand draw just sucks. If you do behind the hip, if you're not really limber.
Yeah, I mean, so like I'll tell you right now, as like a big fat guy, or even when I'm in shape, like getting over far enough, if you've got any sort of upper body development at all, whether they're movies or muscles or whatever the fuck, getting that, grunting into the microphone is kind of creepy, Jack, I gotta say, especially right after I say movies. Movies, it becomes hard to do that. I am a big fan of appendix carry. I used to be one of those guys that if it doesn't work for you, fine, whatever. As I get more and more into,
I would say you need to make it work for you.
Yeah.
If I can make appendix carry work, anyone should be able to make it.
Well, I think one of the things that people start to get hung up about appendix carry, well, what if I make a mistake? What you need to do at that point is get your firearms handling ability to the point where it's not, you're not questioning yourself as much there. I mean, if you're worried about having an accident, and you should be worried about it, I'm not saying be complacent, but like if you really expect to have an accident, and the reason why you're not appendix carrying is for when you have the accident, you don't want it to be pointed at your genitals or your femoral artery. I think the problem in your thinking is not so much the carry position as the, well, I'm going to have an accident, you know? Does that make sense? Sort of. So yeah. Anyway, wow, I just click over and see opening scene of Way of the Gun, and then I see you quoting that, and I'm like, Jesus! And it took me a second to realize you were quoting the scene.
Not just like randomly.
Right. I'm like, Jesus, Jack.
You know, scenes that I was thinking of when I was thinking making it worse.
We were at Judge Dredd, and this guy started talking on his phone. And Emma, like, hey, turn your fucking phone off. And I'm just like, you know, this is not how we handle these situations.
I've been both guys in that situation. And there's always like a shared moment between the guys of like, oh man, this is totally her fault, but we're the ones that are going to have to deal with it.
Right. Well, and I'm actually fine with her starting a fight that she loses as long as. Oh wait, did I say that? No. Wow. We need to make sure she doesn't watch this now. Oh.
Already shared the link.
Did you tag her in it?
No.
Good. Well, she's busy doing doctor shit. Yeah, so anyway, changing subjects. And the Facebook users get to watch John's relationship implode. Live on air! Anyway, Joe, you want to leave?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's like, yeah, I have to get the fuck out. All right, we gotta cut out. Guys, thank you very much. Melanie, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm sure I will talk to you at some point later. Folks that watch, thanks for watching. We appreciate it. I need to pull the window up so I can turn the Google hang off right now.